When your own stepmother convinces your dad to hand over all his money to her con artist son, who then blows it all on a cryptocurrency scheme, you realize that family ties are pretty conditional. They thought they were taking me for a fool, but it turned out they were holding nothing but a ticket to the basement. But let's start from the beginning. This is only the start. My name's Alex, I'm 23, and let's just say life isn't exactly a cakewalk. Honestly, it feels like I'm living in some twisted drama series full of ridiculous characters who just happen to inhabit my home. It all began when my dad, Michael, 56, a man who's led a fairly respectable life, met Candice. She's 45, but acts like she's still a high school drama queen. Her principles? You could call them a black hole, sucking in any trace of common sense. She's a bit like a tarantula, crafty and patient, biding her time in the corner until my dad got tangled in her web. And just to make life even more exciting, Candice came as a package deal with her son, Danny, a 20-year-old walking emblem of incompetence. Yet somehow, he's achieved genius status, at least in his mom's eyes. It's worth mentioning that Candice didn't pick my dad as her target by accident. My dad's the kind-hearted, naive type, who's always ready to help the poor and downtrodden, even if these so-called victims are suffering from their own stupidity. So, Candice started subtly whispering in his ear about how her little genius Danny had discovered cryptocurrency and was practically running it. My dad, of course, bought into this nonsense instantly. She talked so convincingly about the millions that were just around the corner for their family that even I almost started believing it. Just wait, honey. Soon we'll be rolling in cash. Something along those lines was what he heard from her 100 times a day, and she knew exactly how to tug at his heartstrings. Candice could shed tears the moment money came up, and my dad would immediately go into knight in shining armor mode. And Danny? He was just happy to watch all this unfold. This guy's like a helium balloon. He floats around, making noise, but has zero substance. I have no idea what miracle allowed him to fool Candice so completely, but he did it. He convinced her that he had a magic earn millions button, only he needed a bit of a cash investment to push it. At first, I thought it would all just end in talk, you know. They'd dream big, have a laugh, and that'd be it. But no. My dad decides that the fastest way to get rich is to buy into Danny's cryptocurrency scheme. Dude, what the hell are you doing? Was all I could muster when I realized he was about to sink his life savings into this nonsense. But Dad looked at me like I was the one who didn't understand modern technology. He's just an old softy, always seeing the best in people, even when those people are ready to take the shirt off his back. Naturally, Candice was there to fan the flames, egging him on with that sly smile and wrapping him up in promises of a luxurious life. And Danny, he just nodded along, lying through his teeth about his crypto channels and millions in the project. It's both laughable and tragic. This was when the real circus began. Danny, the so-called crypto king, ended up completely bankrupt, without even a few cents left for a consolation burger. They drained all of Dad's money into some sketchy cryptocurrency that promised exponential growth. And boy did it grow, straight to zero. Picture this. My dad sitting on the couch, staring at the wall as if he'd just learned that Santa Claus doesn't exist. His face, a mix of shock and utter emptiness. He'd lost his entire life savings. Every deepened wrinkle on his face screamed that he was lost. And there I was, watching as Candice, that genius actress, began her performance with perfect calm. "Oh, honey, I tried to warn Danny, but he just wouldn't listen," she said, spouting this nonsense as if she'd rehearsed it all day. Her fake sympathetic sighs, a pathetic show that made me want to scream. She twisted the whole situation as if it hadn't all been her doing. In her version, even Danny was to blame, while she, innocent as ever, was desperately trying to stop the disaster. "I told him this was too risky, but what could I do?" She sighed dramatically, tilting her head. If I didn't know better, I'd think she'd just tried to save Dad from the apocalypse. Naturally, Dad fell for her cheap drama again. It's like he was programmed not to see through her act. The moment she started her "oh, poor me" routine, he swallowed the bait. Meanwhile, I was sitting there, barely holding back from saying something like, "Dude, open your eyes! This is a full-on scam!" From that moment, endless arguments filled the house. Dad, still reeling, kept asking how this could have happened. And of course, Candace blamed everyone but herself, pointing the finger sometimes at Danny, sometimes at the unstable financial markets. Every evening became a new episode in our family drama. Dad was pacing around like a lost puppy, while she followed, rattling off something like, "If only we had known. The markets are just so unpredictable." That's when a new goal took shape in my mind. I couldn't let these frauds control Dad's life any longer. I had to protect him, even if it meant taking matters into my own hands. Candace and Danny had gotten way too comfortable, running the place as if it were their own. They hadn't just drained Dad's finances, they'd practically taken over his entire life, consuming everything he had. My decision was final. I had to pull him out of this pit. Time to act. I realized that if anyone was going to pull my dad out of this mess, it had to be me. First thing, I contacted a lawyer, and honestly, I thought to myself that this guy might be the only sane person in my life. He explained to me that if Candace and Danny's situation got any worse, I could legally claim the house if I covered their debts. Oh, this was my chance. I asked him to prepare all the paperwork so that as soon as they hit rock bottom, I could make my move. Meanwhile, things at home were reaching a boiling point. Dad was fed up with Candace's endless promises and her genius plans to get them out of the hole. "Give me a break, Candace. How much more do I need to lose?" For the first time, I saw him on the edge, ready to kick her out. But Candace was a pro actress. One move, and she had tears streaming down her face, as if her life was hanging by a thread. "Oh, Michael, please. Just trust me one more time. I know this is hard, but we'll get through it." Her drama routine was unstoppable. She had it in her blood. Of course, Dad caved again. The moment he heard her sobs and fake pleas, his anger just melted away. He believed once more that Candace was his ally, not his biggest enemy. But even for him, this was the breaking point. You could see his faith in her was seriously shaken. And me? I was sitting back like I had front row seats in a theater, popcorn in hand, watching her put on this ridiculous show. It was so absurd I almost enjoyed it. And Danny? The guy vanished the minute things went south. Apparently, he decided that showing up at home wasn't in his best interest. He disappeared like smoke. Guess the crypto king was now living off fast food and cheap rentals, far away from his mom's shattered dreams. All I had to do was wait. I knew it wouldn't be long before their world came crashing down. And then it came, the moment of truth. As soon as Candace and Danny hit the edge of financial ruin, I pulled out my trump card. D-Day had arrived. I stood in front of them with a copy of the house papers and announced that I was now the new owner. "Surprise, guys! Guess who owns the place now?" Dad's eyes widened like saucers, and Candace's face twisted into pure shock, like she'd just learned Santa Claus isn't real. "This is ridiculous! This is our home!" she shrieked, clutching her head as if that might somehow change reality. But her screaming had no effect on me anymore. I looked at her, holding the evidence of their own downfall, and honestly, I savored every second. I was in complete control. "Sorry, Candace, but this is just the beginning," I said with a smirk. She started shouting that it was unfair and immoral, but honestly, I couldn't have cared less. She'd dug her own grave. Danny, the crypto investor extraordinaire, sat in the corner, silent as a dead light bulb, unable to utter a single word. I guess his so-called brilliance finally realized the game was over. As for Dad, he finally saw the light. He looked at Candace like she was a ghost, something that shattered all his illusions. That moment, when he realized exactly who he'd let into his life, was worth the whole ordeal. But it was too late. He'd signed those papers, and now the house was mine. I didn't hesitate for a second. I looked at them and said, "All right, pack up your stuff. I got a special room for you both." Yep, I sent them to the basement. The irony is, now they'll be living down there until they figure out a way to pay back every penny of their brilliant investments.